Hi everybody, and welcome to Garden Style. Well, today I thought it would be a really good idea to clear up some mysteries regarding lavender, and actually clearing up a few mysteries as to what the differences are in lavender. So the three primary kinds I'm going to talk about today are going to be your English lavender, French lavender, and your Spanish lavender. Who knew there were so many? And there are actually a lot more than that, but I'm going to stay with the basics and what you guys are most likely going to find in your local nurseries. So to start with, we have English lavender, and I'm going to pull the plants out here so you can see. Hopefully you can see me past the jungle of flowers here. This is your English lavender. And you'll notice that the stems here are kind of long and skinny, and they have the skinnier flower bracts up here at the top. In fact, there's a couple here that are getting ready to open where you actually see the flowers. So with English lavenders, they are actually the hardiest of all the lavenders, being most of these are bred in England, and the kind of environment that they have in England is actually very similar to what we have here in the Northwest. It can be very wet and cold during the winter, and your English lavenders are actually the hardiest and are able to handle more of the cold than your French or your Spanish lavenders. So to kind of show you the difference between the two, I have a French lavender here on the side, and you'll notice that the flower bracts are a lot thicker and a lot woollier. And then you've also got your Spanish lavender. Whoa, got a small table here, I'm putting everything on. Here is your French, and here is your Spanish. And I'm going to flick a little picture in the corner there, but you'll see that your Spanish lavenders have a much showier bract up here on the top. That's actually what they call them, a flower bract, or wings in some cases. But you'll notice that these are a little bit longer. So your Spanish lavenders, as well as your French, have a tendency to be a little showier, and they also bloom longer than your English lavenders. So to get back to the English lavenders, these are considered the most potent as far as making perfumes, soaps, sachets, that sort of thing. And you can probably go to YouTube and just punch in how to harvest lavender, and there'll be a bazillion videos that'll come up and show you how to do that, rather than me trying to cover it here in my video. I'm just more concerned on seeing to it that you folks know the differences in lavenders, which one would be best suited for your particular area or location, and which one will actually fulfill what it is you are wanting to grow lavender for. So for those of you who want to grow the lavender for the smell, the scent, English lavenders are definitely the best way to go. However, with English lavenders, you want to be able to harvest them before you actually start seeing the flowers appearing on the bracts right here. As soon as you see them starting to open, that's kind of your clue that you need to start cutting it so that you can get it at its most potent stage. And keep in mind that lavender is an herb, so you can dry lavenders very similar to the way you would dry herbs by flipping them upside down. But a whole lot of videos I can give you the details on that. So if you want to go and trim the lavenders for harvest or just to bring inside, definitely of course trim them here where all your flowers are. And that may be it for your English lavender. Sometimes I've had it come back and bloom a second time, and sometimes not. Now the trick to trimming any type of lavender, but English lavenders especially, is you don't want to start trimming them or cutting them until the very early spring, when you start seeing the new growth just starting to appear. The big mistake a lot of people make when it comes to trimming lavender is they just want to shave it all the way to the ground, which is very bad. You don't want to cut into the woody part of the plant. Because with lavenders, they will not come back off the woody part once you've cut down that far. So you only want to cut maybe a third of the new growth off, and that can be right after it flowers to bush it out again, or in the very early spring, and that's usually the time I prefer to trim them, as I find they get a lot bushier, and I get a much better result as far as bloom time and how many blooms I get when I just wait until very early spring and just give them a real light trim. No need to go into the woody part. Now, English lavenders definitely are more cold hardy. They can withstand the wet a little bit better, but all the lavenders prefer really good drainage. So you kind of want a sandy, rocky type soil that you're putting them into. They don't like a whole lot of compost. In fact, here in the Northwest, it's been known that we put oyster shells, broken oyster shells, around the bottom. Not only because it adds more to the soil, but it helps to keep them drier and kind of acts like a little bit of a mulch at the same time. Now, French lavenders are beautiful in and of themselves, and the flowers do tend to be a little woollier with a little less of a flower bract on the tops of the flowers as what you would see in a Spanish lavender. And French and Spanish lavenders are both coming from the Mediterranean. And a lot of the pictures that you see of French lavender fields going on forever, that's actually English lavender for the most part that you're seeing grown. Being it's so potent for perfumes and stuff, for production purposes, English lavender is usually the chosen one when it comes to perfumes and that sort of thing. Now, your French and your Spanish lavenders have a lighter scent. They do smell really good, but I find with a French lavender it has a tendency to smell a little more towards the rosemary side as opposed to the lavender type smell. Either way, it's a beautiful plant, and it has a tendency to bloom longer than your English lavenders. Same with Spanish lavender. They're both from the Mediterranean. Both prefer dry, hot conditions, which is absolutely perfect for what I'm talking about today as we're going into June. They just love the dry heat. So you don't want to be watering them constantly. Let them dry out a little bit. They're used to that, and they actually prefer that coming from the Mediterranean. And I know a lot of French lavenders and Spanish lavenders do very well in a limestone type of soil. So a rocky, well-draining type of soil is their preference. And you will find that the bees like them too, as well as me. Like, I'm not a lavender flower. So they're zooming in on these right away. You probably saw that in my intro picture as I was coming into this. Anyway. So lavender prefers really good drainage. They need full sun. I'm going to see if I can find a zone on one of these so I can tell you just how hardy they are. The French lavenders aren't quite as hardy as the English lavenders. English lavenders can be grown from zone 5 to zone 9. Your French and Spanish lavender is borderline. For French, it's usually 8 through 9. And your Spanish lavenders, some of the new varieties they're coming out with can actually be hardy down to zone 7. But either way, you want to keep them on the dry side and, of course, keep them trimmed. There's a little maintenance involved when it comes to your Spanish and French lavenders. I maintain mine by cutting off some of the old blooms on these, as they will continue to keep sending up new ones throughout the summer. So it gets harder and harder to keep them trim and keep them neat looking if you allow some of the dead growth to stay in there. And the real ticket to these guys is in the spring, of course, giving them a full-on trim, cutting about 1/3 of the plant. This is the Spanish lavender here. So cutting about 1/3 of it off, and don't cut it all the way to the ground. It's kind of the same rules apply for these guys as opposed to the English lavenders as well. God, it smells so good over here. It's amazing. So all types of varieties of lavender out there. Hopefully this video will help you kind of figure out what the difference is between the two and what your needs are at home. If you're looking for decorative, French and Spanish lavenders for sure, because they keep blooming all summer long. If you're looking for more of the oils and that sort of thing, English lavender can definitely fit that bill as well. Now, what I thought I would do is show you some other differences as far as lavender is concerned. I'm going to keep the English lavender up here. This particular lavender, as you can see, has a real silvery type of foliage. So you can get different shades of foliage as well when it comes to lavender. This one just happens to be Grosso lavender, and it is sought after due to the fact that it blooms all summer long. It's a heavy bloomer, and this is also hardy to -20 to -10 degrees, so an extremely drought tolerant, hardy type of lavender. So if you're looking for something along those lines, Lavender intermedia Grosso is a really good variety to go with, and I find it does exceptionally well here in the Northwest with our cold winters as well. Then another variety that I wanted to show you guys actually comes with variegated leaves, and I was tickled pink when I found this because these are not everywhere. They're kind of hard to find. And this is called Platinum Blonde Lavender, which I thought was kind of a cute name for it. And this one, I'm going to read the hardiness on that for you. This guy is hardy down to -10, so not as hardy as the Grosso, but hardy nonetheless, to -10 to 0 degrees. extremely drought tolerant, and it is also a very long blooming or repeat blooming type of lavender. So you're getting the green and the yellow leaves on here, and green variegation. They call it bold cream and green variegation. But you also get those beautiful blue flower spikes, the big ones, kind of like the Spanish that you see here. Okay, so real similar, and extremely hardy. So year after year they keep hybridizing these guys and making them so that anybody can grow lavender in their yard. And they're just fabulous to smell. So the purposes I use most of these lavenders for is for landscape reasons, but I did plant a drift of English lavender just so I could harvest them and have them for sachets, oils, that sort of thing. And there's a couple great recipes for lavender oil on the YouTube channels as well, so tune into those. It's really easy to make at home. But I like gathering them in bundles, and if you have enough of it, you can make wreaths out of it, sachets, just have a simple bouquet in a vase. They're very easy to dry. And of course, for landscape uses, they're fabulous when it comes to hot, sunny areas in your yard. They're the perfect plant for that type of thing. Okay, so I hope that clears up a little confusion when it comes to lavenders. They're super easy to grow once you get the knack to keeping them on the dry side as opposed to too wet. And of course, any companion flowers that you put with lavenders, succulents is one perfect example. Any type of plants that you put with them should take some of the same type of conditions as lavender, so that you're not getting too much water on these guys in order to take care of the plants that are sitting around them. Alright, you guys, so there you go. Quick rundown on lavenders. In my next video, I'm going to go over bananas and cannas as we start getting into the summer. I want to lean towards more tropical type plants in my next video, and I thought I would start with your canna bulbs as well as banana trees. There's a lot of areas where bananas are not hardy enough to be grown year-round. This is one of those areas. However, I did find a couple of really neat varieties that are hardier than most. However, I'll still be putting mine in containers and pulling them into the garage during the winter time. And we keep them inside the store during the winter and just kind of treat them like a houseplant. So anyway, I will get into that in my next video. And hopefully we can start rolling out some more and more and more of these. And of course, any comments or suggestions, you can leave them in the description box down below. Or you can get a hold of me at gardenstylenw.com or my email at gardenstylenwest@gmail.com. Hope you guys are all having a fabulous spring. It's about to become summer. I can't believe it. Summer solstice is coming up, our longest day of the year. And for us here in Washington, we're so far north, we see about 16 hours of daylight on that day. So it kind of makes sleeping at night a little rough sometimes, as it's light out by 3:30 in the morning. So anyway, enough of me blabbing along. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.